Welcome back everyone to Gotcha Interact. Today we're going to be talking about Lanyan, a new 4-star character that we're going to get up and coming soon. And looking at what we have in her, it looks like she's going to be more or less a Liyue character, more kind of on that idea. I know there was a lot of talks about her being maybe possibly, like there's being an Inazuman character in the future. There's talks about a Liyue character. Seems like she's that character. The name kind of institutes that, as well as some of her talent leveling materials as well, as me and Rift were looking at this earlier. So she's going to send into attack percent, and she is an anemo shielder. So overall, a very interesting one, and first of its kind, actually, an anemo shielder. So Rift, let's go ahead and jump into it. Looking at her skill, it states that summoning forth the Phoenix Wisp Shield, a secret art passed down across generations, Lanyan dashes forward, and upon making contact with her target, will leap back into the air. The Phoenix Wisp Shield's damage absorption scales based on her attack and has a 250% absorption efficiency against anemo damage. While in midair due to the effects of her elemental skill, pressing her elemental skill again while she's already in the air, or pressing the normal attack, will then cause Lanyan to hurl her Feather Moon rings at an opponent, and they will spin between nearby opponents twice upon hit, dealing anemo damage. Holding the skill at the initial part of this can behave differently. Basically, you'll go into an aiming mode, and you can basically choose where you want to go, and specifically mainly which enemy you want to hit.
And then looking at her burst, it's very short. Lanyan just creates a Feather Moon Swallow array, pulling in nearby opponents and objects and dealing multiple instances of AoE anemo damage. And it's going to be 3 instances. And looking at level 10 on the talent, assuming you have it crowned, no constellations, the scaling for the initial damage hits are 433.9%. And again, that's 3 separate hits, all of that scaling. So that's about 1300 total damage percent based on her attack. We know you just read over the skill, also based on attack. So it's going to be pretty easy to build her, just maybe going full attack, maybe on your attack goblet or your Sans goblet and circlet if you want to just go full shield bot on her. If you want to get some damage, probably some crit. There is anemo damage bonus you could do. There's a lot of different options. I feel like just going full attack, though, if you want to get a lot of value out of the shield, because I think that's what her main idea is going to be, just because she is the first of her kind, like you said, Vixen, to be an anemo shielder. We've never seen that before. So that's kind of interesting, unique, and that's something I personally have been wanting to see somewhere. Another example of something I've been wanting to see is like a hydro shielder, and we sort of got that with Siegewein because she creates a hydro shield with her C2, but I'm like, okay, I want like a character that it works in the base kit at C0, maybe a 4-star in the future. We'll see that. So, but this is definitely really cool. I've been waiting for something like this. So that's pretty interesting, and overall pretty straightforward and basic. Burst is just some damage. Skill has a little bit of damage potential, but also the shield.
Chaska is upon us, but with the Pyro Archon looming on the horizon, we are all making sure we have enough Primogems to pull her. Want to give yourself the best shot at bringing Chaska home without overspending? That's where Loot Bar comes in. With Loot Bar, you can top up your account at a discount so you can pick up Chaska and still afford Mavwika. Loot Bar keeps things simple and secure. The only thing they need is your UID and server. No passwords or emails are needed. And for those late night, last minute pulls, Loot Bar offers 24/7 live chat support. It's the backup you need, especially when luck feels like, well, it's not on your side. If you're still on the fence, just check out over 13,000 player reviews praising Loot Bar. Plus, your currency will hit your account in just 30 minutes or less. Other creators use Loot Bar too. Click the link in the description or pinned comment and make the smart choice with Loot Bar. Now, back to the video.
But Vixen, what do we see in her passives?
Well, I think her passives, and you were talking about leveling a little bit, kind of like what you should be actually looking into in her as a character. The shield obviously focusing into attack. Is that mainly the way to go? She's got an energy cost of 60, and the burst really doesn't do much. So is energy recharge really something that we need to go into? You know what I mean? It's kind of just a throwaway kind of use here. So I'm thinking that you actually won't, first time in a long time, that a support actually doesn't really care too much about the ER. And so looking at her passives though, this actually goes into a different stat in a second that I think that you'll probably want to focus on either as one of those main stats, probably one of them if you can, or mainly in what you're going to see and want to get in your substats. But the first passive talent she has states that when the dash from the elemental skill that she has hits an opponent, if it interacts with Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, or Electro, any of the core 4, the Phoenix Wisp shield will undergo an elemental conversion, much like what we see in Kazuha and Sucrose's burst. with the converted shield absorbing damage from the corresponding element with 250% efficiency. Now, this is extremely good. I'm so glad they did this because I was hoping that this would happen actually with this type of character. We've been wanting an anemo shielder, and the issue with certain shields, right, is that if you run into against an enemy and you are running any type of other shield, let's say you're running in with a Xinyan shield, but you usually want to take the opposite element. So if the enemy is cryo or hydro, they're going to still do the same amount of damage that they would do normally against your shield. But if it was a pyro enemy, then it would deal pyro attacks and it wouldn't break your shield as quickly. The issue is that you're not going to bring a pyro shielder, or most likely, or something like that, against an enemy of the same element. That's just usually what you don't do. Here's the thing though, with this being an elemental, like an anemo shield, and being able to change to one of the core 4, you can now take this character and let's say you're going against a pyro enemy, but you're taking hydro characters with you. As soon as you hit that enemy, you're now hitting pyro. Now the enemy that's attacking you, this shield won't get absolutely shredded as easily. So I really do think because of that, this shield just, it absolutely goes insane. But anyways, the rest of the passive states that additionally, if this use of the skill causes the Phoenix Wisp shield to undergo elemental conversion, the Feather Moon rings that Lanyan throws at her foes, basically those extra hits after she jumps into the air, basically they do an additional elemental damage equal to 50% of the original damage in the corresponding elemental type that she just changed. So if it's Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, or Electro, she'll deal some damage of that element. This damage is also considered elemental skill damage as well, so any external buffs that you have are going to focus in that. Now that other stat, Rift, if you want to talk about our second passive talent that might change some things.
Yeah, sure. And right before I get into that, I was just talking about, oh great, we have an anemo shielder now. And I was talking about how I wanted to see a hydro shielder. Well, Lanyan can do that because you just talked about that elemental conversion. We do have a hydro shielder now, guys. I mean, technically speaking, she can become that. So like, you're fighting Hydro Tulpa and Lanyan hits that, she's going to be creating a hydro shield. So that's just really cool to me. And honestly, it seems like a really great utility to see, even in just a 4-star. She's a pretty versatile shielder. So I just like to see that. But looking at her second passive, this states that the elemental skill and the elemental burst deal increased damage equal to 309% for the skill and 774% for the burst, Lanyan's elemental mastery, respectively. So your 309% of your elemental mastery increase of damage for the skill and 774% of your elemental mastery damage increase for the burst. So it's really just saying, hey, if you have more elemental mastery, you're going to deal more damage, just at the end of the day. And the thing with that, like, that seems really good. Those are pretty good multipliers, it looks like. So if you have, a couple or maybe several hundred elemental mastery on your Lanyan, then hey, you're getting more damage for just everything that she throws out. The issue, or maybe not issue, but just the thing to keep in mind is that the burst is just 3 hits and then it's done, and then it's on a cooldown, which we don't know the cooldown at this moment, but that's just once per rotation. And being a 4-star, it's probably not going to be absolutely insane, right? But it's something to think about. And then the skill is also only hitting a couple times. It's not like it's staying on field as you're off field with her and it's just continuing to hit. So just something to think about. It's not like Lanyan has lots of hits per rotation for damage. So it makes me think that her hits for damage are going to be pretty good for a 4-star, maybe like anywhere between 20 and 30k with high investment. Maybe more, just depending on how inflated her scaling is and just how powerful she actually turns out to be for damage. The thing is, if you're going a damage route, the question then at that point would also be, do you need crit, like a crit rate circlet, or if you're running crit rate weapon, like a viridescent hunt, or even a battle pass weapon? It's just, once again, something to think about. Personally, I think just going full attack and getting as much scaling as you can for the shield is going to feel really comfortable, just making her a full shield bot. Because I think thinking damage route for Lanyan is like trying to make Kirara be a damage dealer. She can do it, don't get me wrong, but it just feels like you're losing out on another thing, and so you're trying to fill 2 roles at once. I'm trying to make her really good shielder, but also trying to make her damage really good at the same time. And honestly, when it comes to 4-stars, especially that have 2 separate roles like that, trying to do that is going to hit really just high diminishing returns in both areas. There's really no return on investment unless you want to really just focus into one thing, and that's what makes a 4-star a little bit more valuable, especially for teams you're throwing them into to be designed specifically for one thing. Like if you're throwing Lanyan here into a Neuvillette team, then you probably want to be a full shield bot build, like all attack percent on your main stats, something like that. You don't really care about her additional damage for the team because Neuvillette, Farina, or whatever you're running is already so much. Lanyan's like a fraction of that, a very small fraction of that. And so having the good shield, especially if you're C0 Neuvillette, that's just like an example of like why I would want to go full shield bot. And if I'm doing damage, I probably don't even care about the shield. Maybe I do a little bit. And it is nice that it scales on our attack. So naturally, if you are going some damage, you're going to get some attack. The shield won't be absolutely pathetic.
Yeah, I think overall everything that we get to see is pretty solid. And now we normally don't talk about constellations at the beginning. Now keep in mind these characters that we've talked about previously, Mawika, the other video talking about Setlali, as well as this video, we just hit the second version change. Not much really changed among the other characters, and not much really changed too much with Lanyan. She got a little bit of a buff on one of the areas, but looking though at her constellation really quick, her C2 actually, she actually, when the shield is active, when your party member hits a normal attack and it deals damage, 40% of the shield's absorption will be restored. And this can occur once every 2 seconds. So I think that C2, especially if you can get multiple copies of her, I think that just, once again, solidifies her almost idea as being a shielder. And even her other things like C4, increasing party member elemental mastery, the C6 giving her skill another charge. It seems like with her as a character, I'm sure you can make her go damage, like Rift was talking about, in a very interesting way. I'm sure that it can happen, it can be, but I think the major way to focus on her is just a shield bot. Depending on if you can hit maybe a certain amount of attack that you may keep in your mind, like I want to hit 2000 attack. If you can do that with an attack percent Sands and Goblet, or a Goblet and a Circlet, basically 2 of those main stats, maybe just for extra damage, see if an elemental mastery, one of those main stats can be turned into an elemental mastery instead of all 3 attack, if you can already hit your number that you want to hit. And that might just be something that just can maybe help out with personal damage if your shield you feel like is already strong enough. Now if it's not strong enough and you still just want to go full shield bot, you don't even want to have to worry about anything, go full shield bot. I think that's the best way to really play her.
And something to just kind of keep in mind is that, you know, elemental mastery is really just damage.
Right.
It's not really helping anything else. I mean, it's not even helping the shield that much either. That's just going to be your attack. So when you are trying to get EM, just know that that's a damage stat for Lanyan, and that's it. It's not supportive. It's not anything else. It doesn't really help. It doesn't help the shield. It just helps damage, and that's it. So just something to keep in mind. I know she's an anemo character, and if she's swirling or whatever, it's technically more damage on the anemo swirls, but I don't think that matters too much. She's not like, you know, Sucrose, where Sucrose or Kazuha might care a little bit more about that, but they also want EM anyways because that helps their personal supportive capabilities. Like Kazuha's going to give more anemo damage, Sucrose gives more elemental mastery and funnels it into other characters, but for Lanyan it's just personal damage. So just something to think about.
Well, that's everything we've got talking about Lanyan. If you guys have any other ideas, thoughts about maybe what you are hoping to use Lanyan for, maybe certain teams you're looking to go for, let us know down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you guys did like the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Check out our Discord as well. And we'll see you guys in the next one.